I like it when gays are mean to women in movies. That's a joke, everyone. No one can even joke anymore.
I can't even say mean jokes anymore.
Welcome to Your Inner Child's an Idiot, the podcast where we look back on things from our childhood and decide if they were any good to begin with. My name's Damon.
I'm DJ. Hello, Damon.
Hi, DJ. Let's pretend we haven't already been talking for 25 minutes. How are you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
In this wonderful May day.
Boy, the weather is appropriate for the season.
Slightly warm than it should be.
But slightly warmer in an upsetting way. Why are we inserting these things later?
It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to do the game we like to do where now I taunt you with my knowledge of the movie we're doing, but you don't know what the movie is. But our listeners do know the movie that it is. It's called dramatic irony, when the characters on stage don't know something, but the audience does. Okay?
So who done it? I don't know. But you know, and they know.
Correct. We're going to be doing a later movie, a 2006 movie.
2006?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some people, those people that get real sticky about our year range won't like this. But this was a popular movie. It has spawned many a meme these days. It had an Oscar-nominated performance by a person who's known for getting nominated for Oscars.
Oh, is this Devil Wears Prada?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We're doing Dev Wears Prada.
All right. Okay. I'm into that.
The chicklet. I said it weird and like it sounded like I was talking about the gum, but I mean the chick literature. The chicken literature.
Not
shortened to chicklet.
Chicklet.
Exactly. I like this movie. I don't know what to say. I was an adult. I was a full-grown adult smoking cigarettes, having sex with strangers, adult at this point. So it's hard to be like, I remember, playing the Devil Wears Prada tie-in video game on my NES when I was a kid.
I was sitting in my PJs, eating Lucky Charms and watching Devil Wears Prada.
Actually, I'm trying to think. I feel like Anne Hathaway's character will be wearing an ugly dress and using like a cerulean belt. That would be her weapon, Yeah.
And I guess, would Miranda be the boss?
I guess she would be the final boss. A lot of those tie-in games didn't really pay attention to the plot of the thing they were tying into. They were just like plugging characters in. I remember playing the Tiny Toons video game and being like, Montana Max isn't a villain. He's just like a jerk in school. He's not kidnapping Babs Bunny. This doesn't make any sense. So I wrote a thorough letter into Nintendo of America to state my disapproval.
Did you ever play the Simpsons arcade game? It's wild.
Oh my God, it is wild.
Very
Don't we
challenging.
have Black Smithers in that? Is it still Black Smithers in the...
I don't remember.
I mean, I am angry. I kind of got my hopes up. I know we're not talking about Devil Wears Prada now, but I kind of got my hopes up when they released the Cowabunga collection for the Ninja Turtles games. The arcade game was like finally available for me to play in a legal manner. And I kind of got my hopes up that they would one day release the Simpsons arcade game because it's...
Yeah.
I remember loving it when I was a kid.
I remember being really hard and always kind of dying at the same level and then running out of quarters. But then I can't remember. It was one of those like barcades places a few years ago. Lauren's work had a party there and someone had already made it 3/4 of the way through. So it was like way past wherever I had ever been before. And we beat it. Kinda. I mean, we beat the game from based on where we started, and
that's like Mitt Romney inherit, like being a self-made millionaire. Like, I beat the Simpsons arcade game. Of course, I mean, I started on level 9, but otherwise, I beat it.
Pull yourself up by your video game bootstraps.
I went to a similar event, and I know that your wife and my boyfriend worked at the same company, so I'm wondering if it was the same fucking event.
Maybe we played. Maybe it was all of us. I don't remember.
But they had the arcade, and all the arcade games were free, and we were able to play.
It was great.
And that ties into fashion and fashion journalism in the following way. DJ, go ahead.
Well, there's so many ways in which it ties in.
Oh, first off, I'd like to thank the people of Hofstra University for hosting this debate. I'm not stalling for time. I just want to thank them. And I want to thank Mrs. Johansen for bringing those delicious baked goods for the debate.
Thank you for coming to me for fashion information, because if there's one thing that I have I am I am Anne Hathaway's character at the beginning of the movie now, where I'm like, this is pretty stupid. I think I carry a lot of straight white man privilege with that, whereas like there is definitely some judgment when I dress schlubby, but it's pretty minuscule because people are just like, whatever. I wear shorts when it's anything over 50 degrees. And people are like, that's just some straight white guy's shit that they do. And I'm like, yeah, well, my legs get hot. And if I don't look cool, I don't.
It's like a greenhouse in there if I wear pants.
I don't care. But I don't remember specifically when this came out because I would have been living in Minneapolis at the time. But I do remember not being very interested in it because I don't think it was.
Because you're like chick lit. You were like, that's chicken literature. I don't want that.
It was marketed fine, I think, because I think it did fine. I think when I did see it later,
it was marketed fine.
That's the beginning of the statement, and then I'm going to say more.
It's just a very specific phrase that I don't think we've ever referred to the marketing of a movie before, nor have we said it was middling.
What I'm trying to say is that I don't think this should have been marketed to me more, but I had no interest in it. And then when I did see it, for whatever reason, I enjoyed it. So maybe it should have been marketed differently because I maybe would have been like, oh, this movie is actually like, I liked it when I finally did see it. Now that was still probably 10 plus years ago at this point. So I am ready.
It is a 2006 movie. So it is, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do the math.
Controversially, a 2006 episode. Like,
yeah. A lot of people don't like the fact that it was made in 2006.
Your inner 24-year-old was an idiot? I didn't do anything dumb when I was 24.
I already had shit figured out.
My tastes haven't changed. People don't change. People don't grow.
I remember not being interested in it myself, I think because of a dismissive attitude towards the source material.
Okay.
And implied in there is women. Gay men can be misogynists too.
That's true, but it's funny.
It is funny. You know, because we call them bitches and we call them ugly and then we just laugh. We just laugh. But I remember when Meryl Streep was announced that she was going to play the titular devil, that I was like, wait, what's going on here? And I think I saw it just because I love Meryl Streep. Call me a basic bitch.
She's great.
But she's great. Sometimes there's a reason people are constantly praised. Yeah. And it's because they're charm bombs and they're really good in roles. I remember having a problem with this, similar to Julie and Julia, which comes out a few years after this, which is like whenever Meryl Streep's not on screen, I'm like, hey, where's Meryl Streep?
What are we doing? What I paid this ticket price for?
I don't care about Anne Hathaway and her boyfriend guy from Entourage. Get out of here. I want to see more Meryl Streep. And I don't want to see her fuck the mentalist either. I want to hang out with Meryl Streep all the time.
Do you think we're going to get a whole, like, his friends are like, oh, Vince isn't going to do the movie. Oh, Vince is going to do the movie.
And then they're going to be like, we're entouraging over here. A line we always said in the show that Damon watched. I'm Turtle.
You know who else I just realized is in this movie? The Tooch.
The Tooch and the Blunt are both in this movie.
Yeah.
This is Blunt's big break, I think.
Was it? It sounds like Baby's Day Out. Blunt's break.
She's Blunt's on an I-beam in a construction site. Joe Mantegna's there.
Watch out, Emily.
What a specific reference to a specific movie that like 3 people saw.
That I'm not sure I've ever seen.
And all of them were related to the baby that saw that movie. Joe Mantegna's family didn't even go see it.
Spencer looks so cute in this movie, doesn't he? I do remember being sort of pleasantly surprised by how Meryl Streep chose to play Miranda, because she didn't come in, and I haven't read the source material, but she didn't come in like, throwing magazines at people or something like that. She's very calm and very like terrifying.
She never really raises her voice, but it still is very effective in that you never want her to get any angrier than she already is constantly.
But I think people like that. You know what I mean? That sort of like command a room. I don't know someone at that level of fashion magazine or anything, but
you did intern for Anna Wintour, but you were just chums. You were just a gadabouts, gal pals.
She is a laugh riot. She is a laugh riot.
Yeah. She is fun. She seems fun.
Yeah, she's a treat.
People with sharp bobs seem fun.
That's a wig. So she has tight cornrows, usually when she's hanging out in the office.
That's our Anna.
Yeah. It's not problematic because she's Anna Wintour.
insert non-problematic reason. All right, we've been rambling enough about the Simpsons arcade game, as well as other topics, and somewhat about Devil Wears Prada. Let's go watch it, and we'll return what will seem like shortly to our listeners, but maybe weeks for us. Stop the upload. Stop the upload.
Yeah, you're right.
Stop the upload.
Can you imagine if we let the upload roll like you're supposed to be able to? What a world.
I perished the thought. I couldn't possibly.
What if, for the Patreon commercial, you play the beleaguered Meryl Streep to my eager Anne Hathaway?
Wait, I thought it was the other way around. Wait.
What?
Isn't Anne Hathaway beleaguered? She's been beleaguered?
It's possible I don't know what beleaguered means. I thought it meant like world weary.
Yeah, but they both have their own sort of type of beleaguerment.
I think Anne Hathaway's more like fresh out of school puppy dog kind of vibes.
In the first few scenes, she does have a puppy dog vibe, but then I feel like the league sets in and she becomes beleaguered.
Well, anyway, patreon.com/YourChild'sAnIdiot. This really played out how I thought it was gonna.
My goal with all your prompts is to derail them as soon as possible, because they usually involve me inventing a doo-wop song on the spot, doing an improv scene, not gonna happen, and a third thing I won't list.
Damon, the no-but school of improv.
No, I don't like that. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk
Michael
about.
Scott in the office. You just always got a gun. If you want to support the show and all our fantastic improv scenes, patreon.com/YourChild'sAnIdiot, and you'll get extra episodes. You'll get even more of this beautiful friendship that the two of us have.
Ludicrous.
And Ludacris is a guest star on most of our bonus episodes.
I call him
Who's
Chris.
to say if I'm...
Because of my no-but school of improv. He's like, I'm Ludacris. I'm like, hello, Chris.
Your name's Chris. Hello, Gordon. I'm not going to call you Sting, no matter how many times you tell me.
I refuse. I said that to Alf once. Also, another famous Gordon.
And we are back. We watched The Devil, She Wears Prada. DWP. The DWP.
Original title, The Devil, She Wears Prada. ... Have you heard of her? The devil, I mean, not
Are you
Prada.
there, devil? It's me, Prada.
Prada and the Deathly Hallows. Part 1.
Would you like to recap this movie for the fine folks?
I'd love to.
Thank you.
Anne Hathaway. Picture this. New York City, 2006. The towers are down,
Jesus.
but the city's got a bright, fresh perspective. Anne Hathaway is a young Northwestern graduate, and she wants to get a job in journalism. She's
idiot
put her
Ohioans.
Resume.
They're
I
everywhere.
hate them. Rust belt fucks. And and she's put her resume out to anyone who will take it. And she gets a call from Elias Clark Publications to interview for Runway Magazine to be the second assistant to one Miranda Priestley, the editor-in-chief of said Runway. Little do we know that Miranda Priestley, also known as Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, Father of Lies, Satan himself, Lucifer, the morning star, frozen in ice up to his waist in the ninth circle of hell, also the editor-in-chief of Runway
Did you
Magazine.
practice all those?
No, that's just my knowledge of the Catholic idea of the devil. Anyway,
He's
it's
a friend of mine.
terrible job and a toxic work environment. She's forced to get Miranda's lunches, forced to call zillions of people. She's forced to answer phones. She's forced to get Miranda out of a hurricane, forced to get copies of unpublished bestsellers. It's hell on earth, but she gets plenty of free clothes, and she gets to meet luminaries such as Valentino, and of course,
The Mentalist.
who can forget James Holt, famous runway designer. And of course, she gets to meet the Mentalist. She gets to meet Johnny Entourage. She gets to meet all your favorites.
She had already met him.
And eventually she realizes she doesn't like it. She throws her phone into a fountain in beautiful Paris, which is where I throw all my phones. It costs a lot, but it's worth it. And she realizes that something that Miranda Priestley may hate her, but she respects her.
Yeah.
And then she gets a job at the Mirror, the Daily Mirror, and Miranda writes one of those, you got spunk, kid. I hate spunk type letters where she says that Andy was her hugest disappointment and that the editor would be a fool not to hire her. Sha-na-na-na.
Which is the
Devil Wears
it's the
Prada.
first of 3 you son of a bitch moments that happen in the denouement of this movie.
Oh, I didn't catch the other ones. All right. That's Devil Wears Prada. I do want to start out because it's the first thing you hear in this movie. Me and Tyler have a joke whenever we're making fun of rom-coms, which is that we start belting out
Suddenly I see.
KT Tunstall's Suddenly I See. And I didn't realize that trope, at least in our brains, comes from this movie. The idea that I would be spinning with, bags in my hand or running across busy New York City streets while the dulcet tones of Catherine Tunisia Tunstall would be playing.
I like this song because it's her, second biggest hit. It's got like just enough danger in like the verse and opening sections because it's got like her little thing and it's got the drums and it's a little bit minery, but she's singing like major overtone and it's just like, oh, are we in danger? But then we get to the chorus. Suddenly I see we're all major, I actually don't think it's
absolutely.
I don't know the chords.
She says hell in the chorus. So we know she's a true badass.
Wow, hell.
No, thumbs up. Riverside Grill Shack, thumbs up. Posture initiative. I heard a rule that you should pretend that your tits can shoot lasers. And if you want to hit people in the face,
we are fembots.
That's what you want to do. You're a fembot. Yeah, think of yourself as a fembot to get good posture. But now I feel like a school marm sitting. I think
the best thing that I've learned for me and my 42-year-old back is actually just like not sitting in one position for an hour. So podcasting not great for something. Not
draping your spine over the arm of a chair and just throwing your hand over it while watching 6 hours of Game of Thrones. Maybe that's not the best thing.
It's a good thing there's
for
not many
back.
Middle-aged men podcasting these days,
We should spring for those gamer chairs that are always so ugly and always peeking out the back of podcasters' screens.
I do need a good chair, but
Do you think there's a market for attractive gamers' chairs? Because every time I see them, I'm like, what is that? You look like you're at some, if Guy Fieri became a dentist. That's what they all look like. They're all ugly as sin.
They all have Super Soaker green, trim on them or something. It's very weird.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's all designed by 15-year-old boys eating flaming hot Cheetos and leaving every 15 minutes to masturbate. Anyway, Devil Wears Prada. Let's go to the verdict.
So, have you read this book? Did you know this came from a book? Did we already talk about that?
I did know it came from a book.
We might have talked about it in the intro. I forgot if we did.
It's based on a book by Lauren Weisberger.
Mm-hmm.
Book came out, I think, in 2003.
Yeah, it was not published when they wrote it.
I wanted to see if there were many major differences from the book to the film, and there were. It seems like the friends group around Andy is much more integral to the plot. In fact, Lily is an alcoholic and gets a DUI and is in a coma because of a car crash when she's drunk driving. That's what drives Andy away from Paris, not any sort of nebulous chicanery of moving executives around different publishing houses. Her friend almost dies. I would say that that's more of a comedy boner killer than I think what happens in the actual movie, but it does seem a little bit more serious. Also, her boyfriend in the book is a school teacher, not a chef.
Interesting.
So chew on that, literati.
You ruin everything with your drunk driving.
Also, Tom Bombadil is in the book and is completely excised from the movie, which is just, if you know the lore of who Tom Bombadil is at the Runway magazine, you cannot remove him. He's important. How else does Miranda Priestley get the dagger of the Barrow-wights to defeat the Witch King of Angmar? It doesn't make any sense.
I like that. I mean, I know that we're joking about lore here, but most of what I learned post-watching this movie from reading little bits of trivia and whatnot was mostly that the amount of companies and venues and promoters and stuff who would not do anything to cross Anna Wintour, which is like the very thinly veiled character of Miranda Priestley is based on. And I think that kind of proves the movie, right? Doesn't it?
Rumor has it, I think there was a moratorium at Vogue that any of the main cast of this movie could not appear in Vogue. I don't know how true that is, because I know even just a few years ago, Meryl and Anna Wintour did a video together where they were sort of playing with the Miranda Priestley role. I think Anna Wintour has realized, like, oh, I think actually this has been good for me, because I didn't know who Anna Wintour was before this movie came out.
I still don't
and
really.
I think Miranda Priestley is not really, I don't think she is as villainous as she is in the book. Although we can go into her
villainy,
her work environment and the settings she sets for her employees. But I think Anna Wintour slowly realized, like, oh, this is like an iconic thing and I'm a part of it. So maybe I should just dive on into it. And maybe I also shouldn't be such an outwardly bitchy person.
When she
did an ice bucket challenge.
It seemed like she
counter that.
Well, can't be bad. She solved the ALS. Good job.
She did it. We did it. We did it, Joe.
I think she kind of softened to it, first learning Meryl Streep is in it, and you're like, okay. And then I think she either was, I don't know if she didn't go to a screening, but like she saw the movie and was kind of like, yeah, it's fine. Like she was no longer upset about it.
That is true.
I mean,
like
that's what it seemed like. But yeah,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't talk to her. She doesn't answer my calls anymore. I get the second assistant. I don't get even the first assistant.
Ooh.
So.
And she's always out of the office. And you're like, when does she get into the office? And the second assistant just starts, trailing off.
I don't want to spend the whole time on it. So I feel like I might need to kick us into the problematic corner just to start.
Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Damon's got a problem, baby. Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Let him know about it.
Oh, do you want to talk about how fat Andy is?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to roll us off? Roll us off. Okay.
Is that a sexual thing? I don't know. Let's put that in the corner too.
I knew a guy that always was trying to get me to roll off, and I was like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I feel like that's the main problematic element. And it does loom pretty large in this because it's an ongoing joke. And there's even funny lines around the fact that they keep referring to Andy as fat, and Anne Hathaway is not only not fat, she is extremely not fat. And it's very...
If only there was some word for it, but yes.
And they're very... And also, like, even if she were, there wouldn't be something that you should shame someone about. And obviously, things have changed. This was supposed to be harsh in 2006 and, in the almost 20 years. I don't know if we've gotten any better, but on the surface, we've gotten better.
That's all I can ask.
Well, and especially in the, the fashion modeling industry, especially in the hard-charging, high-stakes, largely well-financed fashion magazine industry that still exists. I'm sure it's still harsh, but just like the constant referrals to it, which I think it is supposed to be funny even in the movie, but I think it comes off, I think we realize now as a society, it's more harmful than even realized in the jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. At first, it felt like they were making fun of the fashion industry in general and their view of like one body shape for all. Like when Miranda is talking about, when she's disappointed in Andy at some point in the movie and she says, I went against my better judgment. I said, hire the smart fat girl. It is funny. And at first I was like, okay, I'm in on this joke. Like she's obviously not fat. And I wish if they had hired anyone who was just like a slightly different shape than Anne Hathaway, this statuesque reed of a woman, it wouldn't be so kind of like it digs in a little deeper every time the joke is made. And what I think set me off was that in the Paris scene when Stanley Tucci is talking about his potential job. He's nicknamed her 6, as in size 6. And she stops him and says 4. And then they both like sort of celebrate. That's when I really felt icky because I'm like, no, the movie is trying to have it both ways, where they're sort of making fun of the fashion industry, but they're also making fun of girls who are a size 6 for Christ's sake.
Well, I know, like it's played for like, this is sort of a larger problem, so I don't want to get into it too much, but like when she sort of accepts the runway way, you know, and part of that is losing weight when she is, it seems pretty healthy, is part of it. And of course, dressing similarly to everyone else, like, but with like high fashion clothes and stuff. It's like, is that her selling out, or is that kind of gaining confidence or throwing herself? The movie seems to go both ways with it. And that it has the same thing with the weight with her. I even almost called it a weight issue. It's rubbing off on me. It's not an issue. Like, but when it starts, it's like, obviously this is a joke about how she's not
at the fashion industry's expense.
It goes on so long, and then it's like, it's not a joke anymore, like the way they play it. So
it starts to feel like when your friend is ribbing you about the same thing over and over again, you're like, wait a minute. This is starting to actually like grate on my nerves. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And I mean, I have to unfortunately put my favorite joke is part of this. It lives in the problematic corner, and that's from Emily Blunt's character, who says, when she says, I will search every Blimpies in the tri-state area and find you. Blimpies is just such a perfect...
Yeah. I didn't even take that as a fat joke. I took that as a déclassé
I think it's
joke.
both.
Like
it's both.
You're not
cool, and also you're going to be eating.
You'd be eating Blimpies.
So I think it's a problem. I think fat shaming, and that's all gross. It's a movie, but also like it's problematic. You shouldn't do that to people. And I think, like you said, it's the fact that it kind of sticks with it. So anyway, that's my problematic corner.
Yeah. I feel like I like you said, I think it wants to have it both ways. And you start to realize, I don't think it's the second way. I think it's only this way after near the end, at least for me.
Is there anything else in this corner? Look around.
I don't think so that I can think. Well, I mean, this one goes into my larger point, so I'd like to save it for my outside the problematic corner.
All right.
Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Damon's got a problem, baby. Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Let him know about it.
Let's go ahead and dig in. Let's talk about Andy. We've covered her being fat shamed. She is made fun of relentlessly for that, but also her fashion. And I feel like that is fair game.
Absolutely. One of the things I appreciated watching it this time is, of course, in the beginning, she is unfashionable, and they do a really good job of making her not like, they don't turn her into Ugly Betty or anything, but they do a good job of showing that she has no understanding of what her body looks like in clothes. She wears this, of course, infamously cerulean blue sweater on top of like a really, it almost looks almost like it's been misbuttoned button-up shirt underneath. And you know I love a button-up under a sweater.
That's your move.
And then she has this Argyle skirt that is like, it's either too short or too long. It's like halfway down her calf. It's just this very frumpy outfit. And she also has those big, chunky wedge heels. The whole thing is terrible. One of the things I like is that Miranda Priestley, when she looks at anyone, will always make a point of looking at them. Like there's a Sorkin-esque scene when her and Emily are walking down the hallway, and she actually bends forward to slightly look at Emily's outfit as a whole. And there's a moment when Andy's in Miranda's office, and Miranda tells her not to leave yet, just so she can look at her up and down and then tell her to leave. It's a really great moment because she dresses poorly.
Okay. I want to say two things about that. First of all, I have no idea what is fashionable. I certainly didn't in 2006, and I definitely don't now. I also think that I think it looks fine.
I feel like her outfits could be cute if they were like properly sized for her body.
They look a little frumpy in terms of the fit, but the actual like matching or non-matching or like the colors, I think it's all fine. And I think that they actually do a decent job of sort of explaining in the infamous cerulean scene, which we could talk about, where she dresses her down. She's like, this is from a department store, which it almost definitely is. We don't know where she got that, but it's like, that's where it's from, because that's where normal people shop, because it's not $5,000 for a sweater. And you know, things that you buy off the rack often don't fit as well because you just buy them off of a rack. It's not a department store, though. It is casual corner, some tragic casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin. Oh, is that a store? Casual?
I feel like Casual Corner is a store, although it's not capitalized in this random AI-generated website that I found this on, so who knows? I mean, that speech is great. By the way, I feel like when I was researching this, any speech that you remember from this movie is because Meryl Streep insisted that speech be included in the movie. Yeah, I think the Cerulean speech was in an early draft and got excised from a draft, and Meryl requested it to be put back. And then I think the editor's board scene, which doesn't have Andy in it, I think it's the only scene without Andy in it, where she gives her famous line, "Florals for spring, groundbreaking." Yeah. That is also, I think, a Meryl request, to see her actually working and being extremely competent at her job and showing like, this is why she has the job and why she's respected in this industry, despite, everything else we've seen.
Well, and it shows her also like her dynamic, the sort of like antagonistic dynamic spreads to everyone pretty much except for the Tooch. He's her only like trusted, and obviously he gets thrown under the bus too. But back to Andy though, I think I wanted to...
Yes, I was talking about Meryl Streep, the actress of her generation, but go on.
Well, Andy's the main character. I do think we should spend some time.
No, I know. It's a minor problem with the movie is that I just want to talk about Meryl Streep some more. But yeah, Andy, I think they do a good job styling her.
Her hair looks bad. I wanted to point that out. Like her hair just like it looks. I mean, it's still Anne Hathaway, but like she looks like she has split ends and like it's going all over the place.
They do a cutaway, like a flashback scene to the initial scene we see of her after her big makeup. Like, but in Act 3, she has a flashback to the first scene we see of her, and it is quite remarkable how they made this classically beautiful woman look quote unquote terrible.
Well, and it's like seeing a piece of artwork that's dusty. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with it. She's still beautiful.
As it's being cleaned, you realize, oh my God, I didn't realize the skin was so pearly white.
The Statue of David's glasses off. You're like, oh my God, I can see your hog.
Oh my God. She's all that.
While we're on Anne Hathaway, like I know that, and this is obviously the through line of the movie because she is the main character. Her transformation is probably the weakest thing. And I know that's like the main thing because I kind of get what the movie's trying to say. Now that I took my glasses off, I cannot get them back comfortable. It's great. Never remove your glasses.
Well, I mean, it's worth it because one, it's an audio podcast. And as long as we choose to use this clip for our Instagram stories that are seen by tens of people, it'll all be worth it. And then step 2, ? Step 3, profit.
Smash that follow button. Her whole transformation. So she comes in. On one hand, she's kind of doe-eyed, like deer in the headlights. But on the other hand, she doesn't want this job because she wants to be a journalist. And in the cutthroat, always growing, never to crater journalism industry, which she's still in at a magazine, but I understand. It's like she wants to be a serious writer. She gets this job as an assistant, not a writer, at a fashion magazine. So you can see that she's kind of like disappointed. She's not getting paid very well, but she gets this job. It's very demanding. She wants to quit. And then she decides, due somewhat to the Tooch giving her a pep talk of sorts, she decides to dive in. She's like, if you're going to do it, if you're going to be here, like show up. And basically what that means is she gets a makeover, mostly, and then tries a little harder. It seems like she was trying pretty hard the whole time, but yeah.
Let's talk about this because this is my main complaint with the movie. And I mean, it's something I only noticed in this viewing, and I don't think it ruins the movie for me, but it definitely like puts the whole movie on a weird edge for me. Weird edge? What the fuck am I talking about?
Wordsmith.
But what drives me a little crazy this viewing of the movie, and this goes back to what I was saying about the fat jokes where it wants to have it both ways. The movie, I feel like that's the main problem of this movie entirely, is that it constantly doesn't seem to know how it wants to feel about Andy specifically, which is that it's constantly criticizing Andy for her choices while also seemingly eliminating the fact that Andy made a choice at all. So let's use this Stanley Tucci dressing down scene where he sort of calls her on the carpet and says, "You're not even trying. There are a million girls who would kill to work here and you deign to work here." And it's a good speech. It's a well-written, fun speech. I like it when gays are mean to women in movies. That's a joke, everyone. No one can even joke
God,
anymore.
I can't even say mean jokes anymore.
But he gives this really good speech, and it's sort of this, like, the pivot from Act 1 to Act 2. But what precedes this speech is that Miranda is trapped in Miami during a hurricane and calls Andy while she is having dinner with her dad and insists that she get her a flight out of Miami during a hurricane. An impossible request already. Secondly, we see a very stressful scene of Andy sort of ignoring her father, trying to actually get this done. So you have this impossible request, and we see Andy trying desperately to get it done. And then it's immediately followed by her being told by Miranda how disappointed she is in her. And then Tucci saying, well, you fucked up. You're not even trying when you're working here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She is trying so hard. And I feel like they went for the laugh in that scene, where it might have been a wiser choice to have a more realistic way that she failed.
Yeah.
Because you stack the deck so much against her that I'm having a hard time seeing what the movie seems to want me to believe, which is that she is making a choice to not put her whole ass into this job. And then later, during this sort of pivotal scene, the Paris debacle, where Andy supposedly chooses to take the Paris trip from Emily, the other assistant, and go herself. Again, I feel like there is more of a choice on Andy's part, except she's threatened with losing her job by Miranda, where we already know she can't make a living in New York and her father's keeping her afloat. And then, on top of which, the movie, again, goes for a big laugh and has Emily get hit by a fucking cab and break her leg, so that she's not fucking going to Paris anyway. And then the movie still criticizes her for going to Paris at all. And then that's supposed to be this huge, like, oh my God, you already did this, don't you remember? To Emily. Which, by the way, is my brother's favorite line. He likes the way Meryl says, to Emily. She almost whispers it, which is amazing in a movie where I feel like she's constantly whispering. But that, again, is this moment where the movie's trying to say, wow, Andy really made the choice to do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I was trying to figure out, like, what is this weird thing that's going on? And my headcanon, my theory for this, is that the movie didn't have the cojones to make Andy unlikable and have her actually make an active choice about these items. So they kept putting all these sort of, like, wacky hijinks around her, but it completely muddies the waters of this supposedly emotional line through this movie that she is choosing to go deeper and deeper into this hell of fashion or whatever. And it just started to piss me off the more, because the movie keeps criticizing her for it no matter what she does.
Yeah, and there are a couple of beats that I wish they were the main beats. I can understand why they went for the kind of funnier, outlandish things, like her trying to get her out of a hurricane, like you said, or trying to get the unpublished Harry Potter manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it. She's
don't
a turf.
Get any
She's
published
a turf.
Or
don't do
unpublished. If you have them now, fine. If you don't have them, don't worry. He kills Voldemort.
Whoa.
And he does it through the power of friendship or something.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess I don't need to read
he
this
uses the Triforce, and then he gets the ring, and then it's a whole thing.
Mount Doom. He throws the book and the thing.
He throws it, and then he rides a sandworm.
And
at
he's
some
like,
point.
I am the Lisan Al-Gaib of the rings. So,
original title, not as catchy.
Good. But there are a couple months, like, it does make sense. Like, when she gets told, like, hey, this is an industry that makes millions of dollars, and there's, like, lots of decision makers, and if you're going to work here, like, find out about it. That is actually good advice. Like, you work at this thing, you work here, whether you originally wanted to or not. You took this job. Why don't you find out about it? The quirks of how her insane boss works is, like, less interesting to me than an employee saying, I work here now, so I'm going to find out about it and be interested in it.
I'm going to learn how to spell Gabbana by the time I'm done here.
Yeah, and I think those beats make more sense to me, and it would have had a little bit more resonance in terms of the whole story if those had been kind of the turning points as opposed to, like, the crazy shit. I feel like that's the other thing is I don't think this movie goes one way or the other. They kind of want to have it, like with the fat shaming thing, they want to have it both ways. They're like, we want her to have this character change, but they won't let her go far enough to, like, do anything. And so when she has this revelation at the end where she decides, I'm going to get back together with my kind of loser boyfriend, I'm going to write for this paper instead, I'm kind of like, it seemed like you were finding your way. And I know that Miranda has this even more heel turn. I don't know. I'm not saying she should, like, the character should still be working there, but it's like, I'm not sure what we learned about ourselves. We learned that you can do hard things, but it's like, if you could have gotten that job at the Mirror before, but maybe you couldn't have because you didn't have this recommendation from this thing.
I mean, the idea of the movie is that working for Miranda for even just a year is enough to open any door you want in print. Yeah. And that's why she's sticking it out. But the movie also seems to want me to think that she should quit.
Yeah.
But also she should stick it out. She should lose weight, but she should also be who she is. And the fashion industry will chew people up and spit them out. And it's just a travesty. And also it's work and it's worthy of everyone's respect. And toxin work environments are terrible unless they get you ahead and then they're worthwhile.
To be fair, the movie, that's kind of life though, right? There aren't these like cut and dry things, but it's a movie. I want a little bit more cut and dry, I think.
Yeah. So you want to get into Miranda Priestley?
I guess.
Can't we just talk about her some more? Or do you want to talk about other people and end on Miranda? Of just glowing reviews of Meryl Streep.
You brought her up, so let's just talk about Meryl Streep. She's fine. I'm done talking.
That's a lie. She is great, and she's the only reason you remember this movie. She's wonderful. I read some stuff about her being hired, and apparently at some point, when her name was initially thrown around, someone said, Meryl Streep has never been funny a day in her life, which is about to go back in time to 2004, whenever they were planning this meeting, and just tear everyone's skulls open.
Everyone's just got a beating heart in his hands all of a sudden.
Sir, what happened here? You should have heard what they said, though.
About Meryl?
Your Honor, you should have heard what they said. I love her wig in this. I love that she has this stark white hair, which was, I think, Meryl's choice as well. I think in the book, it's already obvious because of what Lauren Weisberger did for a living, which was work at Vogue. But in the book, Miranda is British. She has like a sharp bob, I believe, in that. She has blonde hair and a sharp bob. Like she is, it's just fucking Anna Wintour. And I love that Meryl sort of, I think with one of her longtime colleagues, they sort of style Miranda to look in a very specific way. But she really, like, we talked about this in the intro, the fact that she never really yells in this movie. Even when she's actually mad, she never yells. I think Meryl described it as she wanted everyone to have to sort of lean in to hear what she was saying. But, I mean, Meryl, again, like, even in scenes where she's not saying anything or sections where she's not saying anything, she can just look at people and you can see a whole range of emotions. It's really great. I love her in this. I love that she checks out everyone's outfit. I like that she just says, that is all, when she's done talking. I do also love that she has like a category of lines which are all just like, I don't understand why, ... I don't understand why the car can't be here when I'm ready. Why is no one ready? She's just amazing. And one of the things I always have appreciated about Meryl Streep, that no matter what sort of tier of movie she's doing, she always sort of brings the same like homework into it. And I feel when she's doing something like sort of trashy or middlebrow, like She-Devil or Death Becomes Her, she still brings the same energy as she would to playing Margaret Thatcher or being in John Patrick Shanley's Doubt. She still brings a full character to the piece. And it's always amazing. And you see little bits and ideas and layers to this character, even when they could have been one note, like Miranda Priestley really could have been one note.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a completely different movie if someone else's cast.
Yeah.
And it's really, because Miranda has some pathos and you do kind of like find some empathy for her later, but she is still bad. Like she is the villain of this movie, but she's well-rounded, interesting character, and it's amazing. She's really great in this. And her look to Andy when she like looks at her shoes, like you were talking about, she deserves an Oscar for that. Just alone. Not to mention of course, the speech. You want to talk about the cerulean speech, like in Toto now? I
just remembered, I just had a flash, and then we can talk about the cerulean speech, but I just had a flash, and I never noticed this the first few times I watched, but when Andy comes in for her interview, she says, my name's Andy Sachs. She takes her resume, puts it directly in front of Miranda. Then Miranda takes a newspaper that's right next to her, puts it over Andy's resume, and just starts turning pages in the newspaper. And she does it in a very specific way where she takes both of her hands and she pulls the tip of the page to turn the newspaper page. And she's just like reading it while Andy's talking and occasionally like looks back up over her reading glasses. It's so intimidating. She doesn't say a fucking word until the end. Love it. Their cerulean speech is great. It pisses me off in a very specific way, but I'll get into that afterwards. If you haven't seen this, just look it up. She's talking about the specific sweater that Andy is wearing when Andy is sort of, they're doing a review.
They're scoffing about two belts looking exactly the same. Yeah.
Right. They're doing a whole like rundown. They brought all these Z racks full of outfits, and Miranda's trying to pick out things that'll be in the magazine. And they have these two cerulean belts, and Andy laughs because she thinks it's ridiculous because they look exactly the same to her. And Miranda picks up on it. Also, I never noticed that Emily Blunt is also framed right behind Andy and is just standing there watching her and sort of silently like shaking her head. But she's just enough distant that she's sort of out of focus, but you can still like make out her larger gestures. Again, it's a fantastic speech. She's talking about how this sort of trickle down idea of the fashion industry. Someone does something big. We're doing cerulean military jackets, and eventually that trickles down over, a year or two until you're picking it out of some casual corner clearance bin. And she's sort of saying, you think the outfit you're wearing is because you don't participate in anything we've done, but what you don't realize is that outfit was picked out for you by the very people in this room. It's a very great speech. It dresses her down in a very specific way without ever, of course, raising her voice. It's great. It's a great speech. What pisses me off about it is that at least in the era of fashion we're currently in, what I feel like we are in a trickle up fashion industry where fashion is sort of just pulling, and people might roll their eyes and say, oh, fashion's been doing this forever, but pulling up from street fashion and then just marking it up 1,000%. Oh, you want Gucci shoes? Well, we can get you scuffed Gucci shoes. It drives me insane when I see high fashion impersonating low fashion. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm like, you're supposed to be the leaders in this industry, and you're just telling us like, we saw some cool kid in the Bronx wearing this, and we're just going to charge you $9,000 for a vintage Garth Brooks t-shirt. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, and I mean, that's my main criticism with like fashion in general, whether it's an industry built around it or just, it's like, it's just a way of like showing your status. In the worst sense, it's a way of separating yourself, of like grouping yourself. Oh, these are my people because they wear this or that, or these people are beautiful and these people are ugly. In the best sense, it can be the way you express yourself. It's the way that you feel good about yourself and the way you accentuate, and I love my body, even if it's got fat folds and whatever. And that, I think all that is great. And then all this stuff is bullshit. So the fashion industry at its peak, and this is obviously, I actually don't know if it's obvious. This is a cartoonish depiction of it, and I don't know how accurate it is. It's probably worse in some ways and better in others. But anytime you're commodifying something at that level, it's gross, right? You're talking about selling stuff that no normal person could possibly afford. However, there's still the art of like putting on a fashion show and stuff that I think that has been brought even more to the lay person with Project Runway and what's the other one? You know what I'm talking about. Like the fashion reality shows.
The other
and
one.
This movie too, where you can kind of like see, even if it's not a real version of the industry, you kind of see into the industry a little bit and you're like, oh, that's what goes into this thing. And I think anytime you learn more about something in your world, it gets more interesting and nuanced, and you see that someone somewhere has put an incredible amount of work and talent into something. And that's always cool.
Right.
Like I don't give a shit about chess, but if I watch somebody being incredibly good at chess, I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting. I have no idea how that works. And then you see someone like crafting chess pieces out of marble or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, that's like the best of humanity. I don't know.
No, I see what you're saying. Like there is this weird mix of art and commerce, and it's always uncomfortable when those two things meet. You have like visionaries and then the people who want to sort of mass produce it and commodify it. And those things sometimes need to be done. I mean, we can't all just wear, haute couture, but it can be very gross when those things happen. And I think when I get annoyed is where you're not even coming up with the ideas. That's what I mean when I see this trickle up like system in fashion where I'm like, wait, you're not even doing the thing that you're supposed to be upcharging us for, which is like leading on trends. You're not actually leading on trends. You're just seeing what poor people are doing and then marking it up 6,000%. I mean, what drives me, like you see people, I mean, I was telling Tyler about this where, you have Chucks, you have Converse All-Stars, and, you can get them for fairly cheap comparatively to other shoes. And then you'll see like fashion houses have their own shoe that is clearly mimicking the silhouette and the style of a Converse All-Star. And it's like, why would I buy that? Where this other thing is already iconic, but this thing costs $600 and it just infuriates me to no end. But it happens a lot more often than I think we think. And I think it's grotesque. But, I mean, there is work. I mean, that's not to dismiss all fashion, but I think there are two systems at work. And I think there is a trickle-up system and there is the trickle-down system of the cerulean belts. Yeah. And who would know better than us?
Yeah, obviously, fashion maven. My nickname in high school was Maven. DJ Maven.
Oh, you know DJ Maven?
Well, because you just mentioned her, let's talk about Emily Blunt, who is, I think, my favorite part of this movie.
I was going to nominate her for the Catherine O'Hara.
Please.
Okay, because she's great. My favorite dynamic in this is that Andy keeps trying to have small talk conversations with her throughout the entire movie. I'm like, this woman doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
She's just constantly like, do you have plans this weekend? And Emily Blunt's just like, yes, and then walks away.
I love it.
Emily's character, I mean, she's sort of like a stereotype of the fashion girl. She doesn't eat as much as she should. Yeah. She doesn't eat carbs. She's on a diet, which is just not eating. When she describes what the diet is, she just doesn't eat. And when she feels like she's about to faint, she eats a cube of cheese. She used to be in Andy's position. And then when the other girl quit, took over as Miranda's primary assistant, which is funny because it feels like Andy's doing everything. I don't never see what Emily is actually doing. At one point, she is picking up scarves, which is one of the few things we actually see her doing. Otherwise, she's just on her computer all the time. We know that she's very excited for going to Paris Fashion Week. And also one of her tasks is like memorizing all the people in a binder, technically 2 binders, for this benefit that Miranda throws every year. She sort of has to sit like the chief of staff behind Miranda's ear and sort of say, well, this is
her bag man.
This is the editor from blah, blah, blah. Right, exactly. And tell her who each approaching person is.
The moment where Emily is sick and she's just kind of like got brain fog because she is sick and should go home. She can't think of someone's name and Andy thinks of it and like tells Miranda, and that's kind of where she wins her favor. But my favorite part about that, just credit to Anne Hathaway, is like she has this look of like surprise. She surprised herself with that knowledge. She's like, oh, that's the ambassador, blah, blah. And then she does this look like just wide-eyed at herself. It was a good bit. Sorry, back to Emily Blunt.
And that young woman is the woman he left his wife for.
You were talking about Emily Blunt.
I know. I just love her in general. I mean, she gets some of the best one-liners in this. Where Andy says that she didn't want to do something and she says, oh, you have somewhere to better to be? Some hideous skirt convention you have to go to?
The Blimpies line, which I know is problematic, but it's very funny.
At one point, Miranda asks for skirts from Calvin Klein. And Andy asks Miranda, well, what kind of skirts? And she's like, bore someone else with your questions. And then she goes back out and tells Emily she wants skirts from Calvin Klein's. And Emily's like, lower your voice. And then she's like, did she say which skirts? And she's like, no. And she's like, okay, I will sort this out. You go to Calvin Klein. She's obviously very competent and she's very excited to work there. She gets along well with Giselle Bundchen, who also seems to work there. This is a flash I saw into her character. This is a very specific choice I feel like Emily Blunt would have made, but she is mean to Andy constantly. And I just assume she's an unpleasant person to be around. But then when she's in the hospital, she's nice to everyone else that's not Andy that's there. Someone comes to bring her lunch and she smiles and says, thank you. And like, she's very nice to everyone else. Like she runs into a woman when she has all the scarves right before she gets hit by a car. She says, excuse me, which is not something I would have expected. And I'm like, oh, she hates Andy. Right. She's not a mean person. She fucking hates Andy. So maybe she's more like you than you care to think. You're very nice and you hate Andy.
That's a fair point. I think she's fantastic. Like, obviously, Meryl Streep it's more of like an obvious choice. You know what I mean? Like, Meryl Streep makes this movie.
She's got her awards.
Meryl Streep makes this movie what it is. And Emily Blunt makes me enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some of the men folk? Specifically Adrian Grenier.
Oh, let's get the lessers out. Adrian Grenier is playing guy number 1.
Rakishly handsome guy.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. He's cute. He's got those baby
Lips.
blues like a Mykonos sky. I don't know about the lips. He's got that beautiful hair, that dark skin, but he also is so bland that even in the moments where he's like sort of flirting with Andy, I'm like, do you have genitals? Like, I can't even understand. Do you even know what sex is, young man? I thought you just made grilled cheese. I thought you were a grilled cheese dispensary. Burnt that grilled cheese.
Burnt the shit out of that grilled cheese. I was so mad.
Stop flipping it and just take it off the goddamn pan.
Slow and low was the name of the game with grilled cheese. You got to melt that cheese.
Yeah, before you burn that bread. That's the thing that I can't do, but Tyler can. And that's why he is the Adrian Grenier of our house.
I always said you were the Anne Hathaway of that relationship.
Because I have a Northwestern hoodie and I'm putting my hair up in a green scrunchie.
You kind of get on my fucking nerves. No, I'm just kidding.
And if you need me, I'm usually at a Blinkies. Who else we got?
The Tooch. We got to talk about the Tooch. Yeah.
Well, no, I know. I wanted to save him for last. There's also potentially gay man friend who I don't know if we ever name
the guy
him.
from Mad Men.
Rich Summer.
Yeah. Is he gay? I guess it's implied that he's gay. I kind of got that, but also kind of didn't. But I think that's fine.
One of the things I picked up with this, that's true. It's none of your business. It's my business, and I will find out. I noticed in this viewing that I don't think either Stanley Tucci or this Doug guy ever say explicitly that they are gay.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
This guy is a little bit more of an emergency or a mystery. I don't know why I said emergency.
He's your emergency gay. Like if you need a gay, if you're in the third act,
we need a gay in here. Stop.
If you're in the third act and we're like, we need at least one. We have a whole movie about fashion. We've got one non-confirmed gay. We need another one in here. 50 cc's.
50 cc's a gay. In me stat. Don't say He plays Doug. I mean, he is never confirmed to be gay. He's like right on the cusp where I'm like, are you just, who are you? And then the movie's like, don't worry about him. He's just here for like 3 scenes. You don't even have to bother with him. But he seems to be very knowledgeable of Runway magazine. At some point he says, as a joke, like, I'm actually a girl. And Lily says, oh, that explains a lot of things. And then at one point she says, I've got someone you need to meet. And he's like, oh, food and sex? Show me the way or something like that. I don't know if this guy's gay or not. But I felt like the movie is trying to be like, hey, you see this over here, gays? We got you. The Tooch, I mean, is more obviously
effeminate, at least.
Played up. And even some of his lines are hinting at sort of the growing up gay and hiding in the pages of Runaway magazine as sort of an escape while you wait for life to begin. But I think in this view, I was like, I don't think he ever actually says
something about his
explicit about being
partner. Gay. I mean, I know he's talking about his business partner.
No.
Okay. Maybe he was just talking about his partner. Okay. Yeah.
He does check out some guys while he's at the fashion shoot in Central Park, like Jungle City or something, whatever that fashion shoot is. There are a few like assistants who walk by and you can see he's checking them out, but they're so out of focus that you really couldn't clock what gender they identify as. You couldn't. But he is really good in this. He is part of our problematic corner. And
he delivers most of the jokes that have at her.
Most of the problems. He also, by the way, while I was reading about the book, he is sort of an amalgamation of 3 fags that work at Runway, all condensed into one fag. It's the rule that why pay 3 fags when you can just pay 1?
Especially when we got that emergency gay, like in the friend group.
We've got him. If we need him, we got him. He's like the emergency stairwell. Stanley Tucci will not be working in the middle of a fire. You're going to need to use Rich Summer.
Always know where your Rich Summer is. That way, if you have to make a quick escape to a gay.
Now, I noticed that you're going to be standing next to Rich Summer during this party scene. You have to assent to me verbally that you are okay with assisting in an emergency if Rich Summer needs to be deployed.
I need to hear it verbally.
Can you not? You actually need to say it out loud. Yes. Okay. I mean, you can always switch seats if you don't want to be the person talking to Rich Summer in the party. Okay. Good.
Everyone good?
All right.
I guess it's a pretty low priority point to talk about, but there's a point where Andy and Nate, the boyfriend, are kind of in a rut. I don't think they're on the outs yet, but she goes to Lily. It's her art show.
Lily is the secretly drunk friend from the book.
And then Lily spots Andy being flirtatious with the Mentalist. Who is like a big publisher, bigwig, who starts to hit on Andy.
Let me get his name once, and then we can go back to saying the Mentalist. Simon Baker.
Simon Baker, a.k.a. The Mentalist.
Simon the Mentalist Baker.
I just yelled as soon as I was like, the Mentalist. So she sees them not canoodling, but the guy's like kind of interspace. And I think he kisses her on the cheek or something. And then
he kisses her on the cheek, and she does that thing that people do on the cover of Harlequin romance novels where she's like looking away and her eyes are closed.
And then Lily's like, I saw that girl. You're no good, Nick.
You fucking bitch. And then she's mad at her.
And then she uses that to call her out on her whole behavior. Like she's become someone else. I don't know who you are anymore. That felt really unearned to me, that whole thing. It was just like, I know that's where we're going with this, sort of, but it seems like, I don't know. I guess it led to her having that heart-to-heart with the Tooch where he's like, yeah, well, if your personal life is going to shit, because she also breaks up with Nate like right after that. It's like, if your personal life's going to shit, that must mean you're due for a promotion. Like he's like saying it's really hard to balance personal and professional in this industry. And I guess that's a beat that makes sense. But the like leading up to it, it felt like it was just on the page and they had to act it out. It didn't really make sense to me.
It did feel like a scene that was doing like maintenance. Yeah. It was like, we have to get to the next story beat and we need everything in this scene. So it was like, we reestablished the relationship with Simon Baker, the Mentalist. We have Lily see what's going on and sort of dress her down. We've used that pun too much. And then she essentially kind of breaks up. She does break up with Adrian Grand Marnier. And
Vance.
Done. We're going into Paris with a fresh look where we can fuck the Mentalist with no holds barred.
We got no entourage, but we're part of an entourage. So everything's going great.
I do want to say, I mean, the Tooch, I love that speech by the Tooch. I know we're bouncing around now. He's sort of the Grace Coddington of Runway Magazine, the former creative director of Vogue Magazine. He has this ring. Did you clock this fucking ring he's got on his hand? How? It looks like he stole it off the Caesar of Rome's finger. It's the size of a champagne cork coming off of his goddamn hand. I'm not even a ring guy, and I was like, kind of want that ring. I love Stanley Tucci. Tyler would leave me in a second for Stanley Tucci.
Wow.
It's amazing that he gets away with this, but it is a great performance by him. Just playing a really mean gay.
Yeah.
Once again, just like all of his scenes, especially those early scenes, are just him being mean to Andy. And I'm like, what is the difference between him being mean to you and Miranda being mean to you? When she, like, after being yelled at by Miranda for not getting her out of Miami in a timely fashion, she like walks to Stanley Tucci's office and Tyler went, oh, good, another person who's mean to me, but this is the one I trust.
I think it's the character, but it's also just the way that Stanley Tucci plays him. It's very warm, even though he's being mean. It feels friendly, and the good-natured ripping is like, sometimes when you think about it, you're like, actually, does this person dislike me? Because I don't know they've ever said anything nice to me.
Nor have they ever
but
said
they're just good at delivering it in a way that feels like we're friends. And then when you think about it, like if you had it written out on a script, we'd be like, we're not friends.
All he says is horrible things to me and makes fun of my weight. But I'm the one he comes to confide in when he gets that new job at James Holt that would eventually be taken away from him. Were you a little heartbroken when he says that line where he's like, she owes me one way or another, she'll make it up to me. And Andy says, are you sure about that? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, for a very simple, straightforward line, it's kind of heartbreaking. Yeah. And watching him be excited and you're slowly starting to realize like something's up.
He's not going to get
this.
As
a viewer. Yeah. And he's not going to get that job. You're not going to get that job.
Can I get that job?
Can I get that job? Can I get that job?
I want to say that the only person that I recognized that was like in a sea of very obvious fashion world cameos was Heidi Klum.
Klum. The Klum.
Everyone else was like, I mean, that's the lady from Lost. I know her, but I think she's just an actress. That's the redhead lady, Rebecca Mader, who holds the belts up. She's like part of the staff.
Oh, okay.
But there's very obvious, like, a shot lingers too long on someone's, and there's like a very upsetting looking man that's obviously some sort of designer in the fashion runway show. And then there's like fashion runway show. Could I sound any more ignorant about this world?
You sound like Che from the new seasons of And Just Like That, talking about her comedy concert. Like, what are you talking about? This is supposed to be your industry. You're describing the same feeling I feel when I watch a Marvel movie and when someone's like, my name's Rex Harrington. And the crowd gasped. I'm like, who the fuck is Rex Harrington? You're like, okay, so like in the Crisis of Infinite Earths, what happened was that Rex Harrington was the Green Lantern for 2.5 weeks while Hal Jordan was like in Maui.
Like, that's...
And I'm like, oh, of course!
That's Vincent Haynes, heir to the Haynes fortune. He's a very famous model.
Valentino is in there. He was the man whose skin and hair were the same color. He was an odd-looking fellow and backstage of the thing.
Giselle, of course.
According to this, Heidi Klum is there. And also, according to this, Donatella Versace has a scene, but I don't remember seeing her, and I would have clocked her immediately.
Yeah, I don't know to that.
Oh, Robert Verdi is in this. If you'd ever been hungover and watching E! News Network, you would have recognized Robert Verdi. He looks like an eraser. He's a bald head, and he would always have sunglasses perched on his forehead for interviews. He would always be on the red carpet talking to people. Tyler was like, I remember him. He was like a thing. And then we looked him up, and he's on Instagram. He's still active, possibly in fashion journalism. He was sharing a lot of pictures, though, from years past in recent posts, which always feels like the death knell, where it's like, he was just like, oh, here's some pictures of me in different outfits. And then Tyler noticed one was from the premiere of a Katherine Heigl movie. And I'm like, that's not recent. That's not a recent photo.
They're going to start using, instead of carbon dating, they're going to do Heigl dating. It's just like, this was 27 dresses.
No, it can't be past 2012. Come on.
I'm ready to go to the verdict. Do you want to go to the verdict?
I do have a plot question. So one of the many ringers that Miranda puts Andy through, there's this benefit that we described earlier where Emily was having to memorize all these photos in a binder. And Emily gets a cold. And so Miranda asks Andy to come to the benefit. But Emily still goes too. And I'm like, why was it necessary? You're still bringing this cauldron of viral infection.
Well, she wasn't,
into the benefit. And it was just like, no, we just want to, humiliate Emily some
hygienically,
more.
It's a bad move and there's no defending it. From a staff perspective, the idea I thought was she still doesn't trust Andy all the way, but she knows that Emily's dropping the ball by getting a cold. So, I mean, plot-wise, it's just because it sets her up to, like, have that moment. But I guess in Miranda's mind, she's like, she is already, like, a mess and forgetting things. I'm seeing this happen.
Right.
So I'm just going to bring Andy to like, help. And then,
I took it as Emily's Harry Potter book, essentially. Just like a humiliation for Miranda's sake.
I mean, that could be, too. I don't know. It's not Tucci's first. Is it his first line? No, because his first line is, he says, what pointing behind? I don't know if it's his first line, but I really like that.
Yeah. Well, he comes in and talks to Emily about something and then puts up a book and says, in front of Andy, like obviously talking about it, just puts it in front of her face and then points at her and goes,
that's really good. And then when Miranda's coming in earlier than they think, he goes, all right, everyone, gird your loins. It's very good.
They say when Meryl showed up with, this might be apocryphal, but when Meryl showed up in costume with wig, someone braced the director, like one of the assistant directors, like put their arm in front of the director as if they were in a car crash. They were just like, oh my God, look at her.
And then one of Miranda's first lines is, tales of your incompetence do not interest me.
Love her.
Right after that, she says, you don't care about fashion. But Andy starts to answer. She goes, no, that wasn't a question. So good.
My favorite line was at some point, Andy, of course, is given some terrible task that she will fail at. And she says to Emily on her way out, she's like, wish me luck. And Emily goes, I shan't.
I love her so much.
Do you have a Sally Field scene? I mean, I feel like the easy one is the cerulean belt scene. Or do you just want to waking up with the mentalist? Is that your Sally Field scene? While you think about that, I also love in the Tina Fey verse, the mentalist is shorthand for like shows that were on for like 1,000 years that no one watched. I believe it comes up at one point. Liz Lemon gets a tote bag for the mentalist because she went to the CBS store. And in Girls Five Eva, there is a song written about how Sarah Bareilles' character hopes no one finds out that she bought 7 seasons of The Mentalist.
So good. I can't think of another. I mean, there's a lot of good scenes in this, but yeah, I think we can go with that.
Sterling Belt scene's great. The makeup list scene is great. I do like Meryl's reading when Andy is trying to tell her about the takeover and she's like slamming on the door and Meryl just comes out again without raising her voice. I know I keep saying that, but I still think it's amazing. She comes out in sort of a hurry and just goes, "Have you lost your mind?" I think that's what she says. It's something to that effect, but it's a very like mundane line, but she reads it in such a very specific way while also like she once again looks her up and down when she says it.
That's very good.
That Meryl Streep, she's going to
be somebody someday.
When's she going to be in Marvel, man?
Damon, what is your verdict?
I'm having conflicting feelings about this movie because I feel like there's a lot of great lines, there's a lot of great scenes in this movie, but I'm very torn, almost Grease-like, about the actual plot and moral of this story, which is like, when you watch Grease, you're like, these songs are all fun. We're all having fun. Wait, I'm sorry. What's that movie?
Yeah.
What's the climax here? What's the moral we're learning? That this woman should change who she is for this pretty mediocre guy? And I kind of feel that way for a lot of the reasons we talked about earlier. I feel like the movie is very muddled and seems to not really have a point of view it wants to make about this industry or about Andy in general. It feels like it pulls its punches. Well, the weird thing is, like, I feel like it is scared to make Andy unlikable, but still is happy not to pull its punches when it wants to criticize Andy for things that she had no control over. I think also the attitude it has about toxic work environments and sort of almost like it's a little bit Ayn Randian for me, where it's like, well, she's a bitch, but she has to be because she's just so, unique and such a genius that she's allowed to treat the rest of us peons like shit. It's kind of disgusting. Yeah. And the movie sort of wants to engage in this sort of girl boss way where it's like, if she was a man, you wouldn't even criticize the way she runs her office. And part of me is like, yeah, but is really the goal that everyone should be terrible rather than we should hold the men to a higher standard rather than just letting everyone be just assholes to people under them? And then at the end, after she finally quits her job from these horrible people, she gets this glowing review from, "You son of a bitch." You're supposed to tell us you're 3 son of a bitch. Save them for your verdict. From that son of a bitch moment at the end, where Miranda really learned something from Andy and Andy really learned something from Miranda. So wasn't it all worth it? And it's like, no, this is toxic. This is unhealthy. I do appreciate that they flesh out Miranda a lot more. I think this movie works a lot better as like sort of a collection of scenes rather than something I'm gleaning something from. But it's also like a fun, effervescent, lighthearted comedy. So I'll say Your Inner Child is not an idiot, which is what I was getting to, but with a lot of idiotic caveats. I feel like excusing bad behavior that I think our generation was very good at, of just being like, well, them's the breaks. I think it's terrible too and really bad, but what are you going to do? I'm trying to get ahead in this industry. But overall, I like this movie, but I think there's a lot of things to talk about in it.
The "you son of a bitch" moments. The first one is she goes to apply for a new job at the New York Daily Mirror Gazette thing. And, you mentioned that Miranda gave her a kind of glowing recommendation that gets her the job. And then Anne Hathaway's face, "You son of a bitch." And then right outside of that interview, I guess it's right across the street from Runway, she's walking out of the building and Miranda's getting into a car and they see each other and she waves and then Miranda doesn't really wave back. She just kind of pulls her sunglasses down and then gets in the car. And then Anne Hathaway does chuckles to herself, "You son of a bitch, number 2." And then in the car, Miranda's looking out the window and does a little "You son of a bitch, number 3."
Wow, it's a triptych of sons of bitches.
"You sons of bitches" in a row.
Right in quick succession.
It was like, it was not subtle. And the movie's not subtle, so okay. But like, it was still like, okay, I get it.
I get it. They hate each other, but they respect each other.
We're not so different, you and I get it. Yeah. So we could speak over an hour about some of the problems in this movie, but it's a lot of fun. I really actually liked it. I liked it more than I thought I was going to, because I know the Meryl Streep of it all, and I always love Stanley Tucci, but like the whole, rom-com-y vibe of it, it's not really a rom-com, but that's the same kind of vibe it's got. it was great. Emily Blunt is amazing. She's hilarious in it. I got to give some kudos to Anne Hathaway because I find Andy, the character, kind of annoying, but I think Anne Hathaway does some really nice things in this that are like make you empathize with her and get kind of mad at her. And she's doing what you need to like have emotions about the character. And I think despite being the star of this movie, at least by me, gets overlooked because I'm like thinking about how great Meryl Streep is, how great Stanley Tucci is, how great Emily Blunt is. And then I'm like, actually, she does a great job too. I just don't like her character, which is fine. Like, that's allowed. So yeah, You're in a Child's Not an Idiot. This is great. It's a great movie. I think fat shaming is bullshit and they shouldn't do it, but also otherwise, it's a pretty good movie.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you.
What do you think, everybody?
I just realized I never take the baton at the end of this, so I don't know why I tried to take it
I thought you were going to.
I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to segue to all the information we have to do.
What do you think, everybody?
There it is.
Email us, you'reinnachildisanidiot@gmail.com. You can text us or leave us a voicemail, 615-576-0525. Want to thank our friend Russ Weaver for the use of a song Top of 2 for our ad music. Want to thank Jackson Has an Unhealthy Obsession with Damon for our Damon's Problematic Corner music.
I am in here. And I think for our patrons, I think, it would be best for them to get their names read in disaffected yet withering voice of Miranda Priestley.
Okay. And we want to thank our patrons for supporting the show, including
Little Miss Chicken Nugget,
Just Cuz,
Lindsay Halik,
Scalthosaurus,
No, Heather Tuggle,
Larissa, Maestro,
Hizoner the Mayor.
I don't know why, but Beth Surmont.
Why can't anyone like Jackson have an unhealthy obsession with Damon?
Zachary Hartley, thank you for showing up.
The supreme ruler of this podcast.
You can't hear this, but I'm looking you up and down. The hands of fate.
Caroline Amberson.
Lindsay, Nell.
Dr. Yes. Malcolm's, yes. Heaving Bosom.
David Mort.
The Zesty.
T. Smith.
Erner. Demons will stream unique scent.
It isn't the elusive Van Gromkin.
Bill Haynes.
Jeremy T. Powlen.
Can you get Travis Vance on the phone?
Someone get me Particle Man.
Karen Curd, is it?
Would it be too much trouble to get me Josh Frigo?
How about a dramatically placed hot dog?
James Taylor, if you please.
Shit on the Cartouche.
Jonathon Day.
Tommy Boy is my favorite movie.
Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
As I was being lulled to sleep. I've never done that to myself. Yeah.
Thank you all very much for supporting the show. If you want to support like them, patreon.com/you'reinnachildisanidiot.
This is where I want to be. Let me I see. You want to go to L7? Yeah. Yeah. I'm a bitch. I'm a lover. Right? I was informed that Meredith Brooks of Bitch fame is a trumper now. Not that I was ever committed to Meredith Brooks in general, but
she warned us.
She did warn us.